Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are.
Hello, good morning, dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry.
Dobry.
Hello, and welcome to the second day of the symposium organized jointly by the UNR College of Business and the SGH Warsaw School of Economics. My name is Mehmet Tosun. I'm the Director of International Business Programs in the College of Business. I'm also a professor of economics and one of the symposium organizers. We had a wonderful first day yesterday that included great presentations and discussion from Nevada and Poland. In addition to the 3 faculty sessions, we had 1 undergraduate student session, which was new in this year's program. Today we have 3 more sessions, including 2 graduate student sessions. But we are starting off the day with 2 keynote addresses. One from Michael Brown, who is the Executive Director of the Nevada Governor's Office of Economic Development, and a second one from Marek Dietl, who is the CEO of the Warsaw Stock Exchange. I look forward to the keynote addresses and the rest of the presentations, but I'd like to invite first Dr. Paweł Pietrosienski to introduce the keynote speakers. And I would like to mention that the keynote speeches will be about 20 minutes. And then we hope to have, of course, some time at the end for questions from the audience. And for those, you should be seeing a Q&A tool at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Please enter your questions, and you can, start, writing your questions anytime. And again, please use the Q&A tool at the bottom. I look forward to the presentations. Paweł, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mehmet. And this is my pleasure to introduce Michael Brown, and he's the Executive Director of the Nevada Governor's Office of Economic Development, appointed by Governor Steve Sisolak on November 4th, 2019. This is Mr. Brown's 2nd cabinet-level appointment in the Sisolak administration, as he previously served as the Director of the Department of Business and Industry. Mr. Brown brings vast experience to the Governor Sisolak administration. Previously, he held 2 roles at Barrick Gold of North America, the world's largest gold mining company. First, he served as a Vice President of US Public Affairs before becoming the President of that organization. In addition to that, he served 8 years under President Ronald Reagan at the US Treasury, and he started his career in the Ohio House of Representatives, working for Representative William Batchelder. His dedication and passion have been recognized in many forms. In 2015, he received the Civitas Laureate Award from the Foundation for the Independent Tomorrow. In 2016, special recognition by Latin Chamber of Commerce. Then 2017, Mr. Brown was recognized as an education hero by the Public Education Foundation, and in 2018, he was named a distinguished alumnus of Lorain County Community College, and currently Mr. Brown serves as a board member of the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, Public Education Foundation, and Nevada Ballet Theater. Mr. Brown, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And reflecting on this, I was at the Rio Olympics 4 years ago, and I had a seat in a big stadium one afternoon, and I was seated down at the end of it where they were doing the hammer throw and shot put. And I was there for women's hammer throw, and I didn't realize that this was like a great sport in Poland, because I was surrounded by about 300 Polish fans of these sports and watched them win the gold medal there. And I think I was probably the only American sitting in the midst of everyone. So and as a result of that, my plan before the pandemic occurred was to go to the London Olympics in 20 and then go to Poland and up into the Baltics in 21. Now, as the pandemic has changed all of those things, and regretfully, Tokyo won't be accepting foreign visitors to the Olympics this year, so I won't be there to cheer Poland on, but I wish you the best of success in those sports and look forward to visiting Poland in 2022 and kind of completing my plans there. It's a pleasure to be here to deliver a keynote address on behalf of UNR College of Business and the Warsaw School of Economics at this joint symposium. You know, Nevada and Poland are lucky to have such bright students. 40 years ago this month, I was preparing to graduate from Ohio State University. I was my undergraduate degree, and I just want to point out the contrast in technological changes in those 40 years, because right behind me, this would have been the highest piece of technology that I had as a college student. This was a typewriter that you could actually correct your typing on. Now, if I was in college, I would have this great iPad that would not only connect me to every piece of research, everything that's ever been done, but I would know what my friends that I attended primary or elementary school had for dinner last night. And so we've had this amazing acceleration of technology in those 40 years. And of course, 40 years ago, I was the youngest appointee to join the Treasury Department. I came out of Ohio State. I managed to join the Reagan administration as a young appointee. And, you know, that was an interesting time. President Reagan had set an agenda of standing up to the Soviets, which included defending our great Polish allies. He set an agenda of deregulating the American economy, and he set an agenda of conservative social policies in the United States. And that framework has lasted for about 40 years, and it is now evolving and changing. And I am sure that if you're in Poland today and you look at the United States, you say, what's going on in this country? You know, what is happening? And Poland, like Nevada, sits in the middle. You know, we sit with this great behemoth, California, to our west, and then the rest of the country to the east. And Poland kind of occupies a similar geographic situation with the former Soviet Union and Russia sitting to the east, and then all the European countries sitting on its other European countries sitting on its western border. So, you know, it's kind of the land in between, and that's where Nevada sits right now. And so we are experiencing Nevada. If you look at Nevada, you will see where America is going. Nevada's population today, we're one of the most diverse diverse states in the Union. And I reference that because the changes that you're seeing in America have started here. We are one of the states that are 50%, 51% minority majority, Hispanic, African American, Asian, and then the white population. And that the changing of the diversity of America, the changing of the diversity in Nevada, the infusion of these technologies has accelerated and disrupted the norm for the United States. And I think our political system in the United States is now looking for that new norm. And the pandemic has accelerated all of that. So as you look at the United States right now from Poland and you say, what is happening in this country? This is a period of incredible dynamic change. Our basic demographics as a country have changed. We've had the acceleration of technologies that have unsettled a lot of Americans. It's not their grandfather's country anymore. It's not what they thought it was going to be. But we're going to persevere. Americans, like Poles, are resilient people, and they will work through this political difficulty that we have today. I think what you will see from the Biden administration is you will see much more interest in working closely with other countries, in strengthening NATO, strengthening our trade relations, and strengthening all of the kinds of interconnections such as this one that make both America and Poland resilient and ready for the future. And so have confidence in where America is and where it's going. I have great confidence. You know, we have 4 generations in our workforce: the baby boomers, boomers, the post-World War II generation, of which I'm at the tail end of, Generation X, millennials, which now outnumber baby boomers in our electorate, and then post-millennials. I'm not sure we have the right term yet for that generation. I have great confidence, and I believe that President Biden is that transitional figure that will pass the baton to that next generation of leadership, just as John Kennedy was the transitional leader in 1960 and President Reagan was the transitional leader in 1980. And so I would say, as you watch America, and it looks a little confusing, looks a little disconcerting perhaps at times, at its core, we have the same values, the same strengths that you have in Poland, and believe we will persevere, and that the world will be a better place as we work together. Now, COVID, post-COVID economy. Pandemics are inconvenient, and pandemics live outside the collective memory of most Americans. My grandmother, who was born in 1906, lived through the pandemic of 1918, but she's gone. Her memory of all of that's gone. And so as we came into the pandemic, it was challenging because it wasn't something people remembered and could respond to. But we've made great progress. Here in Nevada, we're approaching a 50% vaccination rate, and we've been able to reopen much of our economy. More of it will reopen next month. We're proceeding at a great pace and have strengthened our public health service, particularly our public health service at the University of Nevada, Reno. And so, the pandemic, what I'm seeing as an economic development director, it's reshuffling our economy. We are seeing companies come to Nevada because they're interested in being in the Pacific time zone. They're reshoring operations out of China back to the United States. We are seeing them try to sort out their logistics. If I look back at the period of the 1920s, it was a period of great prosperity in the United States. And so I am very, very optimistic about where we're going. But I'm particularly optimistic about the generation of students that are coming out of our institutions. University of Nevada, Reno is an R1 Carnegie University. That's the highest level of research activity for doctoral universities. We have the Osmond Center for Enterprise and Innovation Center. And we have, with a partnership with Switch, this wonderful innovation center in downtown Reno. We've had a strong partnership between the UNR College of Business and the Warsaw School of Economics. I will say that the interns I have today, oh my gosh, I mean, I learned so much from them. I have a call later this afternoon because one of them has written this brilliant paper on resiliency in the Nevada economy and our weaknesses, where we're strong and where we're weak. I mean, this was not the kind of research that I could have produced when I was a student back in 1980, where I was literally, I could do research based on what was in the Ohio State University library. I didn't have the concept that I would be sitting on a call like this today with world leaders, with the head of the Warsaw Stock Exchange, was completely foreign 40 years ago. It also, I think, makes it very challenging to be a college student these days. And I wish you the best of success as you move forward. I got to open the New York Stock Exchange once, and I got to press the button, and it was on national television. And everyone, I got all sorts of calls that day from pressing that button. It happens every morning. But the key is that when you open the stock exchange, you want the stock exchange to end higher that day and not be the guy responsible for pressing the button and sending the stock exchange down. And so I'm very pleased that the day Kelvin Dushinsky, my boss, and I pressed that button, that it went forward. Nevada, like I say, right now I'm trying to lead us into a post-COVID economy. Great confidence in where we're going to go. Great confidence in what we've been able to do with our medical system. But this is happening because of a woman named Katie Kariko. Katie Kariko, Hungarian, but Central European. She is a friend of mine, and she developed the mRNA messenger technology that has made the vaccine possible. I think there's a very good likelihood that she will win the Nobel Prize this year. And I came to know her because her daughter is a rower. Her daughter, they left communist Hungary. They left in 1987. They snuck out. They had $1,500 that they had sewed into Susan's teddy bear. She was 2 years old. And her mother, Katie, had a research opportunity at the University of Pennsylvania. And they bought a two-way ticket, but they only used half of it. And they came over to America. And she started research on RNA. And she believed that RNA offered great opportunities in the area of vaccination. But no one else believed in her. But she persevered for 20 years doing this research. She never received a National Science Academy grant. She was denied tenure by the University of Pennsylvania. But she persevered in this research, and I met her at the London Olympics and became family friends. Susan is a two-time Olympic gold medalist, one of my best friends. And Katie's research about 2 years ago was noticed by the Turkish and German couple that were working with Pfizer and Moderna, and then the three of them developed that vaccine. Susan, my friend, got married in October, and I put on all my masks and face shields and went to the wedding and sat next to her mother and father at that wedding. And her mother explained where they were in the vaccine and what was going to happen. And everything she told me that day has now come true. But it is a testament to someone who just persevered. And it's a testament to the value of just pure scientific research, because without her research, our Washington Post newspaper yesterday had a story of what would have happened if this pandemic had occurred 20 years earlier. And it was grim. It would have had a very grim future. So anyway, watch my friend Katie. I think she's going to be recognized globally here very soon. But I also just think it's a testament to that all of us the concept of perseverance and the concept of academic research and just continuing to march away. All the critics tried to dissuade her from doing what she did, and look what she's done to help move us forward. I'm excited. Nevada has been able to attract name brand companies like Panasonic and Tesla and Google and Apple and Amazon and the Switch Corporation. We are well situated. Like I say, our geographic position, like Poland's geographic position, has great advantages to it. But what I'm also seeing now in the economy, and this would be interesting to economists, is I'm seeing older mainline corporations, some of which are 100 years old, looking at our state because they need to sort out their logistics and their supply chain. It failed in the pandemic. Just-in-time inventory failed. They need to resort all of this. E-commerce, I met a company this week, historic American company, been around a long time. I can't say its name, but it is now 75% e-commerce. If you had asked me what I thought their business share was, I would have thought 25%, but it was actually 75% e-commerce. That's the march of the future. There are unfortunately some zombie companies that are still operating in the economy, and we will unfortunately see them fade away. And so, challenge for policymakers like myself now is to have the landing platform for those companies to retrain their workers and create new opportunities for them. One of the areas that we have an advantage of, such as in Poland, is we do have a robust mining industry here. We have a Polish mining company operating here in Ely in a copper mine. Mining is a global industry. It's an infrastructure driving industry. Some of the mining globally to survive is also now a high-tech industry. And so those of you in the economic area that may look back at resources and mining and think that's old-fashioned, what's keeping American mining manufacturing and global mining moving forward is the introduction of innovation technologies into that sector. So this is like I say, a great period of social change, a great period of economic change. And looking back at the history of pandemics, you see that this is what has happened for centuries after centuries. The Roman Empire was buffeted by pandemics that affected global history, and this pandemic will affect us going forward. I've had a long and wonderful association with Brian Sandoval, the president of University of Nevada, Reno. He was one of my first friends in Nevada when I came here in 1995. I've always believed that it is important to sustain long-term permanent friendships and relationships. It is, there's an expression in America, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I think that is overstated. I think it's a combination of both. You need to have the subject matter knowledge, but you also really need to network. And when I came here, I was looking for the 5 young leaders that I thought would take Nevada forward. And as a new person here in Nevada in 1995, I wanted to befriend the 5 people that I thought were going to lead Nevada forward. Young Brian Sandoval was one of those 5, and he went on to become a state attorney general, a federal judge, a governor for 2 terms, and now president of the University of Nevada, Reno. So, I would encourage as you move out of a college world, to continue to build those kinds of contacts and move forward. I'm looking forward to Pavel returning to America. He was on a foreign trade mission when the pandemic struck, and we both thought it was more important that he stay with his family in Poland. And so he's been over there for just over a year now. And I look forward to showing up at the airport here sometime soon and greeting him as he returns, and look forward to continuing to make this relationship between the state of Nevada and Poland, and with your university and our university prosper. And I'll put my tweet on the chat. You're welcome to follow me. And if anyone ever has any questions about American politics or society, you're always welcome to direct message me, and I'd be glad to correspond with you. And with that, I know that stock markets are important, so I'll transition to our friend from the Warsaw Stock Exchange. Thank you.
Pavel, would you like to introduce Mr. Marek Dietl?
Yes, definitely, yes. And of course, thank you, Michael, for such a bridging Nevada with Poland, and the state and the country, they were never being so close. So thank you very much for this. And now I have a pleasure to introduce Dr. Marek Dietl. Dr. Dietl is the CEO of Giełda Papierów Wartościowych, Warsaw Stock Exchange, and the economic advisor to the President of Poland. He has spent almost 20 years in the consulting and venture capital industries. He collected experience as a non-executive board member of more than 25 organizations. Marek Dietl frequently undertakes community and academic activities. He used to serve as a mediator at the arbitration court of the Financial Supervision Commission and advisor to the President of Energy Regulation Office. Marek Dietl is also the assistant professor at the SGH Warsaw School of Economics. And I have to also add that he also represents a member of the consortium, in that case Warsaw Stock Exchange, with the grant which was recently won, grant given by National Center for Research and Development in Poland, and recently won by Warsaw School of Economics, by Warsaw Stock Exchange, and Mazowieckie Marshall Office, and including support from the Governor's Office of Economic Development, and including also involvement of researchers from the University of Nevada, Reno. Dr. Marek Dietl. Marek, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Pavel. Thank you very much to organizers for having me here today. Very inspiring talk by Mr. Brown. Ronald Reagan indeed played a tremendous role in helping Poland getting out of the communism. So whenever I see someone who worked with him, I recall the story of fall of the communists, although at this time I was a small child, but with my parents we used to live in 3 other countries in Europe outside of Poland, so I had the comparison between Poland and, let's say, West Germany, France or Austria. So I perfectly knew what was the distance between Poland and, or capitalist countries versus communist countries. Today, as some professor, so I prepared a kind of presentation for you, which hopefully will give you some insights on the ESG, so environment, society, and governance scores in the process of or in the exchange business for the issuers and from the investors perspective. So I will try to share my screen now, and I have here my presentation. Sure. Well, does this work or?
Yes.
Perfect. So I would like to have it now as a presentation, because you will see it as a and here we go. Now I have full screen presentation mode. Great. So let us start. I cannot see the chat, so if you have questions, you have to ask them after the presentation. So I can only see my presentation and panelists. Well, let me start with the quite obvious statement that responsible investment, whatever it means, become the mainstream of the financial markets. There are several reasons for that, and there is quite long history, starting with the first responsible investment fund from 1899, which was actually based on the Christian values. So there is a long history of responsible investment, but it became mainstream relatively recently, and it can be quite easily seen by the amount of assets on the bottom chart on the left-hand side. You see what is the assets under management, US dollar trillions, and the number of signatories of United Nations Sustainable Responsible Impact Aware Investing. The first UN initiative on that started in 2006, and you see the high growth rate, double-digit growth rate until recently. And it's driven partially by the fact that people want to do something good with their money, but also somehow ESG leaders overperformed all the even in emerging markets on the broad indexes, what you see on the top of the page on the left-hand side. So you see, on the one hand, you can you feel that you do something good for the planet and for the society. On the other hand, you can make money on that. And there is also another trend, strong trend for the passive investments. So you leave less money to the active management, to asset managers, but just you put money in the fund, which is ETF or whatever, which is following the index. Okay, so you see that even the in the passive ESG portfolios is the share of passive portfolios is increasing, and the largest investment managers like BlackRock, Aviva, Amundi, they already started to integrate ESG components, so environment, society, governance, into the evaluation models. And from this year, from the end of this year, 100% of their portfolio will be valued not only against the cash flows, future cash flows or whatever, or in stock exchange multipliers or whatever, but that there will be full ESG integration. So the part of the valuation process will be based on the ESG score. And this passive investment also follows the suit. More and more people put money into passive investment, ESG investment funds. and we are not behind in any aspect at the Warsaw Stock Exchange. From 2018, we are among the developed capital markets, so 25 most developed markets in the world. So we also develop products for related to ESG. And we conducted a study among the analysts and asset managers, and it shows that all the participants in the study realized that in last 3 years the share there were increase in the investment, ESG based investment. 90% of them believe that the ESG compliance means less risk, so less volatility of the stock, and long-term improvement of the financial results. Almost half of the local players down here in Poland, they believe that they are taking into account ESG factors in the investment decision, but half of the respondents have not heard about any ethical or responsible investment fund in the Polish markets. And there are currently still few of them, but things are changing. And what is last but not least is this G factor, so not only environment, society, and governance, but not only environment and society, but also governance. So it's a very important factor that the quality of governance improves when the companies introduce or implement ESG strategies. We've been active in this field with our products, with so-called first with a Respect Index. It was the index which was only promotional index, so it was by far the first social responsible index. But it was simply with a partnership with a global consulting company. Companies were free to subscribe to that. The consulting company were doing audit of their CSR, as it was called at this time, and then we were evaluating their performance, and by every year there was a kind of event where we gave prizes to most socially responsible companies. So it was pure PR. The index was not investable. It was not a financial product. And you see the dark blue line is the stock performance of participants of this Respect Index versus our broad index. WIG stands for our main index VIG, or broad market index VIG. So actually those Respect companies, Respect Index overperformed the broad market. Back in 2018, we introduced the first ESG index, which was not a promotional index. It is calculated real time based on the companies. There are 60 companies included out of 150 listed on our venue. But they are most liquid and with the highest capitalization. So the most prominent companies, I would say, from our board. And there is the share of the companies in the index are based on the market capitalization and liquidity of the companies, so trading volumes. But also those values are corrected by the ESG score provided by a Dutch company, Sustainalytics. Companies are not free to decide if they want to join or not. Simply 60 top companies, 60 top names are included. And as you can see, this green line stands for ESG. At the beginning, it was closely following WIG20, so our blue chip index, our top 20 companies. But around around pandemic, so end of February 2020, actually this green is overperforming blue line, and I will discuss it later with our research, as we did some simple econometrics on that, as scientists tend to do. Okay. We also have a code of corporate governance. The newest version, 2021, was announced roughly a month ago or 3 weeks ago, I don't remember. And this is a comply or explain principle, and the G factor is based on the evaluation how the companies are performing according to those rules. And this green line, how to explain that this green line started to overperform the blue line? We ask ourselves five questions. First question was, or hypothesis, is the ESG scoring of the companies in the weak ESG index, so the 60 companies, can significantly explain rate of returns. Okay, that was first hypothesis. Then the ESG scoring can investment risk measured by the stock's volatility, and rate of return is just their stock performance, stock return. And the question, another third question was if the ESG scoring or power of explanatory power of ESG score, if there is a variety between companies and industries, sectors of the economy. And of course, interesting is if ESG scoring or the importance of or explanatory power of ESG scoring differs in the pandemic. We also wanted to check if the fourth above mentioned hypothesis and our findings hold under different controlling variables. Okay. By the way, if someone is really interested in this research, we have a paper which will be published by the Hungarian Central Bank in the conference proceeding on green finance. But of course, I can share PDF. My user ID here in Zoom is my email address. So if you are interested in our draft paper, even before the publication, just let me know and I will send it to you. Okay. We had two distinguished data sets. One was January, December. It was first full year of weak ESG index, and it was obviously before COVID-19 pandemic. And then we took half a year when there was in a peak of pandemia. We are currently doing another round of research related to which stocks are recovering quicker from the pandemic, but we don't have finalized the model yet. And we wanted to explain variables like rates of return and risk measured by the stock's volatility, and the explanatory variable were ESG scoring, but we control it for EBITDA, leverage, so debt to asset ratio, cash flow to net profit, so and profit before taxation. And just to give you a glance that before COVID, with the ESG score, we were able to explain 12% of the volatility, 12% of the rate of return. So R square was 12%, almost 13%. And we were able to explain over 16% of the volatility of the stocks. And after COVID, after breakout of the pandemia, we were able to explain 21% of the rate of return and roughly 4.6% of the volatility. So not a great result, but when we started to control for industries, we were able to explain quite a lot of rate of return after COVID, less volatility. And before COVID, we were able to explain very little rate of return, but quite a lot of volatility. So I think overall these findings are interesting. There's huge literature of stock immunity to the crisis, but what we've done and what we see is in a little bit different string of literature, what was even touched upon by major business newspapers like Financial Times, is that actually the ESG score itself doesn't tell us much when it comes to explaining rate of return or volatility, but actually it has to be combined with the industry, and that there is, think in a nutshell, the idea is that, or the finding is, or anecdotic evidence is, that simply tech stocks are performing better in terms of ESG because they are polluting less, they have quite modern organization, they are socially responsible, they have usually good governance, but and the ESG funds are taking they are taking a lot of stocks from the tech companies, but and this decrease the cost of capital for those companies, obviously, because there is high demand, so the valuation is higher, so the cost of capital is lower. But actually companies with some, like say, oil industry or something, or power generation, they're quite often less ESG compliant for various reasons, but still to power on the computer, we need electricity. And they would be keen, those companies, the second type of companies, to invest in improving their, for example, environment friendliness, and this will contribute a lot to it will benefit the planet a lot if coal miners or coal powered electricity generator would improve their E-score, so environmental score, but actually they have what is a paradox, higher cost of capital. So, and this is especially important for countries still in some of catching up phase to the most developed countries, that we have less of those tech companies, although two largest companies on our venue, one is e-commerce and one is video game producer. So actually we have some tech companies, and we are number one in the world in number of video gaming companies listed, but still overall there are less such companies, but they have and they have relatively high cost of capital, and it can be a limiting factor for the ESG improvement. So there's a lot of fruit for thought from our simple model about if this ESG hype of this ESG trend helps the economy and helps the environment. That's all for now, and if you have any questions, just post them or ask them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, for that great presentation and for both keynote addresses. So yeah, like we have about 15 minutes, for a few questions. So at this point, if you haven't done so already, please, write your questions in the Q&A tool if you can. It looks like, we have at least a couple. So I'm gonna, start with one. So this is coming from, Katie Gilbertson. What are some notable differences between the New York Stock Exchange and the Warsaw Stock Exchange? So I believe this is mainly for Marek, but of course, Director Brown, you're welcome to jump in as well.
Mr. Brown, we ring the bell, for example, at the beginning, and you press the button in New York Stock Exchange. That's the main difference. Don't you think that's the good place to start?
Well, I'll say this, when I saw the New York Stock Exchange, much of it is really a movie set because they film each day, they have the ongoing cable channel reporting on the stock market. And while there's activity that you see on television, most of that's kind of like sitting on a movie set because it's all happening electronically behind the scenes.
Yes, so actually, when it comes to the electronic trading system you mentioned, actually, both New York Stock Exchange and Warsaw Stock Exchange use the same trading system. It's called UTP, Universal Trading Platform. So we have the same technology, but sooner or later we will change to our own proprietary software because it's much faster and much more efficient. So there will be a difference. When I was starting in London Stock Exchange, when we were upgraded to the developed market status, I was also pressing the button, and it was indeed the coverage. There was a live coverage by Bloomberg of that, and it is quite funny when you watch that. You think that a lot of things are going on in the exchange, but literally there are only computers there. So basically, I fully agree with you. It's a movie. The same with us. We have also electronic trading system. There is also another similarity, not only trading system between New York Stock Exchange and Warsaw Stock Exchange. Actually, the first stock exchange in Warsaw was created in 1817, so the same year as New York Stock Exchange, just a few months later. But the difference was that first gathering of the brokers, dealers in New York were in the park or in the open ground, and from day one, Warsaw Stock Exchange at this time was different name, was actually in a building because we have a lot of rain and snow in the winter, so basically decided to start. So there's small difference, but leaving the jokes aside, of course, there are completely different path of development. Back in 1900. Stock exchange in Warsaw, which was this time part of the Russian Empire, was accounted for 4 to 5, maximum 6% of the trading volume worldwide. And in the US, the market was 24, 25%. So it was 5 times bigger. Today, after the bumpy road of Polish history, 2 world wars, communism, and so on, we have a global market share of 0.15%, 15, 16, and US has 63% more or less share in the volume. So of course the size is different. Technology, the techniques is the same, but the size is different. And also in terms of the structure of the investors, so it's sometimes called macro structure of the market. It's different. Namely, in the US, you have mainly domestic investors because US is hosting roughly 80% of the asset managers, and relatively little retail investors. With us, it's completely different. We have 60% global foreign investors, or 50-something 8%. We have roughly less than 20% local institutional investors, and believe me or not, 25% are retail investors. So Poles are very keen on trading. We have 38 million people living in Poland. Of course, there are around 60 million Poles in the world because we have huge diaspora. The second largest city in terms of number of Poles living after Warsaw is actually Chicago. So, but we are a relatively small country, 38 million people. But when there was IPO of Warsaw Stock Exchange, 323,000 retail investors subscribed to this IPO. And we are a medium-sized company, we are not big. So that, I mean, from outside, it looks similar. From the inside, those stock exchanges are quite different, but not that different as you might have thought before my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's a question from Marcin Wojciech-Kotlarski. As you may already know, like there's a new grant called Gospel Strateg. I hope I'm saying it right. So it is really about like, the making the Mazovia region like, more competitive, more open to, companies globally, relocation of business and so on. So this is mainly to Director Brown, but I know that Marek is also involved in the grant, I believe, right? So you can answer both again. What are some of the factors that would help the business environment? I guess like considering this grant opportunity and then like using funds in a smart way to bring more business.
I would start off by saying business always wants certainty. And in some respects, the reason ESG has become more mainstream is because it started as a millennial goal in 2000. It evolved into corporate social responsibility, but people really couldn't measure it. And if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And ESG evolved out of the CSR because it provided business certainty, and the stock exchanges and the financial institutions, they wanted to take this amorphous concept of corporate social responsibility and be able to measure it. And then the other side of that was on the talent side, is that younger folks coming into companies wanted to work for responsible companies, so they were demanding that their employer hit higher standards. So business certainty to that question. Obviously, if you're going to be an innovator and an accelerator, you need a partnership with a university and an academic institution to kind of stay current. And then finally, it comes down to the perseverance and the timeline. These things do take time. And particularly if you're in a disrupting business, you're a race against the clock against your competitor who's also trying to disrupt the business. But business certainty and that kind of partnership with an academic institution, I think, would be fundamental.
From our perspective, I mean, you won't believe me what I'm gonna say. In the 90s, and it was proven by my colleagues and myself in a paper this was chapter in the book published in the US, by the way, that in the 90s, when the companies in Poland, listed companies, public companies, who were announcing that they gonna go global, usually their stock prices dropped. So those companies who were investing abroad, they actually underperformed those who were focused only on the local market, because also the growth rates were tremendous in Poland. We had from 1991 until 2020, 30 years of uninterrupted economic growth. So it was not worth going global at this time. Simply everything was booming. We tripled our GDP per capita over this period and so on. So but starting from 2005, so around when we joined European Union, adverse became true. So those companies who started their foreign operations actually overperformed. So those who were conducted as called outward foreign direct investment, they were actually overperforming those who have focused on the local market. And this is what I think is crucial for the success of the small open economy as Polish one, is that the companies are able to go global. And we do not have managers with a long track record in building up global companies. If you look at the German companies, medium-sized companies, they are very successful globally, but they are usually run for the fourth generation or fifth or the sixth by the same company. So they have really huge experience in going global. The same for Swiss companies and so on, and Scandinavia. So we have to make a leapfrog. So we don't have managers with a proven track record in globalizing their businesses. We have quite vibrant capital market, so the access to capital is quite okay. We were number 3 last year in terms of IPOs. This year we are also now, after first quarter, number 3 in European Union when it comes to IPOs. So basically what is missing is the competence. And what is the beauty of the grant is that Warsaw Stock Exchange, for Warsaw Stock Exchange, is that Warsaw School of Economics, the abbreviation of both organizations, WSE, so I have to be careful, is giving the companies advice and hand in the globalization. And we hope that more, and when they know, they feel assured that they know what they're doing in the global market, they will sooner or later go for IPO and raise money for their global journey. So we have huge expectation towards this grant.
Yeah, thank you to both. Of course, great discussion, and I wish we could go like in another an hour discussing just those things, but we pretty much ran out of time. I believe Dr. Petrosiansky has just one final word, and after that we're going to have to wrap it up.
Yeah, thanking Michael and Marek for your insightful thoughts. I really like to also message everyone who participate right now in this with us, because in a moment, just in 2 minutes, we will be switching to the next session. That would be session number 5, COVID-19 and policy response. I am chairing this session. I encourage you. Basically, what we have to do, we have to leave this session, end it, and you will go through the to the College of Business international site. There is an NV Globe webinars, and there you will see the link to the next session. But of course, we have several sessions to go, so please stay with us longer, because actually we are ending in pretty late time in Poland, because that would be 9:30 p.m. But of course, please, we greatly appreciate that you are with us today.
Yeah, I'd like to express my thanks to both keynote speakers, Director Michael Brown, Dr. Marek Dietl. Thanks for your insights, for those keynote addresses. We really enjoyed, and again, great discussion. We hope to actually continue that in other platforms. But as Pavel pointed out, we need to go to the next session, and actually. We are really looking forward to the discussion in that session as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Great event. Congratulations. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.